Stewart. UART, not EW. He's far more famous and is in America, so UART. Book's called Trapped. It's set in the near future. So here goes. The year is 2032. The grand opening. The mayor waited at the train station for the London party to arrive. The day was warm, an intermittent sun peeked through the light clouds. The station platform was new and still looked it. The underground travelator was up and running, although this morning there were a few last-minute hitches and words were spoken. But now the guests would be able to get off the train and follow an escalator to the lower level and travel on the world's fastest travelator, made possible by having 5 connected travelators, the middle one reaching a top speed of 12 kilometres an hour. The first 2 gradually speed you up, and the last 2 slowing you down. So getting off is no different from getting off a normal travelator. They had tested it last week, with staff running to see if it made a difference, but the test was passed. And now the mayor was worried they had accidentally invented a new sport. He was pleased with all their efforts. The initial impression is key, and he hoped the guests would be impressed with the travelator and being able to get to VV6 in less than 5 minutes, despite it being over a kilometre away. This 6th vertical village was always going to be special. The first 5 were built across the country and were lighter versions of the vision of the late Sir Andrew Brown, knighted only a few months before cancer took him. They resembled large apartment complexes with balconies and a traditional look. They looked like accommodation blocks rather than office blocks, and it was felt that Sir Andrew's futuristic vision was too much for investors to fully commit to. The success and oversubscription of those villages had shown that the appetite for change was much greater than anyone expected. VV6 was indeed a sight to behold, and special for a number of reasons. It was closest to London, it was right on the northern edge of the New Forest Natural Park, and it was the recreation of one of the world's most iconic buildings in the world, Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. 3 towers connected on the roof with a sky park. Instead of 55 floors, this giant of a building has 62 floors and had views across the green spaces around it to the Isle of Wight and the English Channel beyond. But to the people on the inside, this was not what would make VV6 so critical for the UK and possibly the world. VV6 secretly had been located here to house workers from and to support work at Porton Down, the site of the Ministry of Defence Science and Technology Lab. In the event of another lockdown, the 2 sites would act as one. Now that war was relegated to 3rd place behind environmental catastrophes and disease as major threats to the nation, Porton Down had become one of the most strategically critical sites in the whole British Isles. The mayor stood waiting and looked at his watch. The train was due in another 4 minutes. They were all getting updates on their watches, and the station display was showing live video feed from the driver's cab, so you could see exactly where they were. You could see the flood defences on either side of the track as the train sped through open country, having just left Andover. The new station was simply called VV6, was between Andover and Salisbury, a flat part of the country, liable to flooding and other acts of God, such as wildfires and very high winds. The mayor mused at the phrase acts of God. The phrase still persisted in legal contracts, and he had many discussions with contractors and infrastructure planners about such clauses. More accurately, they were acts of Mother Nature, acts she'd been performing for centuries to remind the human race that they were not all powerful. Her acts more recently showed signs of rage and betrayal. She had in recent years laid waste to large parts of the world, and this low-lying area was well within her sights. In fact, this new building had been designed with that in mind. All 4 lower levels could quickly be converted for boat docking and transportation. The roof garden could be repurposed to farm crops, though still too difficult to farm in laboratories. These were all details left out of the press release and covered by one phrase: VV6 has been designed to be future-proof. The mayor knew the emptiness of these words. How could you make something future-proof when the future is in a state of flux? He felt confident that whatever the future threw at them, it would probably be the one thing they hadn't planned for. He didn't know how correct he was. Thank you very much.